All right. It is Friday, December 27th. It's 2 days past Christmas and all the fuss, and it's time to settle in again. How are you doing?
Excellent.
Good. And what you been working on? We
Right?
always what you been working on. We always start with that.
Well, over the weekend, I was proofing the Triple Design Matrix book, which is three books I did with Ra on the dream designs. And it was pretty interesting to go back through those three and proof them because while we were teaching, it was so early in the understanding of the dream design and of the layers of consciousness coded into the design charts that I was pleasantly surprised to realize that Ra and I were both talking about integrating the matrices, and Ra was adamant about the importance of the portals and the bridges. So a lot of what became the expanded charts had its roots in those lectures, where I was beginning to introduce the triple matrix, which was the basic human design, the solar human design at 15 gate, and the lunar. And as I was working with them, I realized that it made a difference when the designs changed. And Ra began to recognize that we needed to look at what went on when we slept and in different states of consciousness, not just a waking state.
Mhm.
But he didn't really fully understand the unconscious, and he dismissed dreams as just basically personal garbage, where you're picking it up from the other side of the planet. Where he got that, I don't know, but
Mhm.
I don't think that's completely true. There are personal dreams that have meaning for people. And certainly in my work as a clinician and as a Jungian, um, I spent a lot of time with my clients on their dreams and the meaning of the dreams. And some people would have pages and pages of dreams every night, and other people would never remember their dreams. And for some people, the personal aspects of dreams were pretty important. So there's misinformation in what is in the book that I've commented on, and there's a lot of good information in the books that I also commented on.
Mhm. Yeah, I still want to connect you with Vicky McHale. She's been doing a lot of work with dream stuff, but with human design calculations. And we've discussed many times, like she's doing some really innovative things, but I think it needs updated coordinates. So I'd love to connect the two of you at some point. I'm still kind of working with last week when we were kind of talking about like even type is something that maybe we don't need to focus on as much. That wasn't quite your words, but it like if we're all manifesting generators and or we're all a manifesting generator at some point during the day, it definitely sent my mind in a whole new direction for a couple of days. So I think I've kind of landed on that one, but it's been
I
fascinating.
think the point, Sean, is that we all have the potential to realize our full potential.
Hmm.
And how we do it is left to us to decide. So, I was just talking to someone who has written a book, and he's helping me to get all of my books on Amazon and Kindle. And I said to him, you need to just tune in spiritually to get it out, that you can't think it because it's not the mental world writing your book.
Definitely.
And it's coming from inside you. So you have to allow that part of you to be visible.
Yeah, to be expressed. is the word that popped in my head. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Hmm. Um,
What have you been working on this week?
what am I wanted to be busy, but my body wanted to relax. So I played some video games with the family. Um, had our big family breakfast or breakfast and dinner, which is something I haven't done in years. I would do one or the other because energetically it was exhausting. But this year I just kind of went there with with an energy plan. Kind of went there with the right mindset. Um, didn't invite myself into resolving any family conflicts where I wasn't invited. And then I had a great time. And then so I went and had a break, and then I went back and did the dinner. And honestly, it felt like everybody was getting along better. And I like to think that I helped by A, staying out of the way, uh, not interfering where I wasn't invited, not trying to. I've become very aware of how I was solving everyone's problems everywhere and made everyone reliant on me for everything. And when I didn't solve the problem, which was actually rare due to my experience, people were disappointed. So it was like, no matter how good a boy I was or how helpful I was still fucking up somehow. And so it was just this agonizing loop. And I just realized I don't have to participate in things where I'm not invited. I think I've said to you before, like when now it's as simple as if my wife is sitting on her phone and she's reading something and she goes, huh, I would immediately be like, oh my God, huh, what? Like, pay attention. Now I wait for the second huh. Because sometimes the first huh was just like her in her own head going, oh, that's interesting. But I used to be so acoustic.
Remember in the Beyond Human Design book, when when I wrote about the 34, 57, 10, 20, I said in there, if you have the 10th gate and the other person hasn't invited you in to play a role for them, stand down.
Did it say that in there? Okay, well, good. I was paying attention, I guess. Just I didn't remember where it came from, but I knew strategically it was. I had validated that that works.
Yes.
Yeah. Hmm.
I mean, the charts are one thing, but as my mentor, Catherine de Jersey, said, dear, don't live your life by a chart. Astrology is astrology. Human design is human design based on astrology. Don't live your life by it. It's superimposed on us.
Yeah. It is informing, though. I'll push back a bit, partly because I know one of the things you want to talk about today is the new year. And there's this notion, again, I don't know if it was part of the revelation, channeled, or just raw, made it up. But the idea that the new year starts, the wheel starts turning gate 41 around January 22nd. And that was a really interesting exercise I started last year. I kind of, I was listening to what you said all year, like don't watch the transits, but I couldn't help myself. So I kind of been just thematically watching it all year. And it's really kind of remarkable. Like you're like, oh, that's what that feels like now. Now I know what that is. And I've just been refining my game all year, right? I got this book I think I told you about by Brina Magnuson. It's basically each gate done as an animal totem. And because I really struggle with remembering a gate's description, but I can remember how an animal smells, how it looks, how it might behave predatorily or not. And that's been really interesting, like sinking in with the energy, not taking too much uh, of it into an account, but it's very interesting how thematically I can feel it in the air, and it helps me kind of tune in to it. So,
Mhm.
so I guess there's a question in there. The question is, was that part of the revelation, or was that a raw observation, or did that come from someone else? The notion that there's this start code on gate 41, January 22nd ish. Do you know much about that or looked into it?
Um, what Ra did was he divided the wheel into four segments. And those four segments were part of the incarnation crosses and which realm it was involved in. The 41st hexagram in Aquarius is the start of spiritual, um, the spiritual world, if you will.
The start of it. Hmm.
So, Ra was very good at picking out something and saying, oh, we should do this. It's a good story. Um, you can start the year anywhere you want. You could start the year every year on your birthday.
Oh, but start with gate 41? Is that what you mean?
No, I mean, the year in Ra's mind started with the start code on and that quarter of the wheel, and then it went around. But as an individual, you could also start the year on your birthday when you were born, because that's going to, so wherever you start it, it's a complete cycle.
Mhm.
So what difference does it make?
Yeah, not a lot. And yeah, I'd rather start on my birthday. I know what that 13 feels like. It's funny enough, I last year I noticed I was getting a lot of questions around my birthday from people. They didn't say, "Hey, your birthday's coming," but they were like very inquisitive, almost like tapping into that energy at that time. So
Mm,
people are paying attention, and you know, so when I think about it, I think I've done it as well. There's been a couple of times where I've noticed like a channel's in transit, and I'll go into my app and see who else has that channel, and then just start asking them questions about the day, and it's
mm.
pretty informing. Like that flavor is there. There's something that really resonates. So you wanted to talk about the new year, and there was something I said or you said that got you all fired up and you were ready to go today. So what do you want to?
Well, what happened was that Marvin and I had been watching some old movies and old TV shows uh, because there's not too much interesting that's current. Uh, so we've been watching I Love Lucy,
Oh well, yeah.
and they're pretty funny. And when I was a child, maybe 8 or 9, um, I loved I Love Lucy. It was on 9 o'clock Monday nights, CBS, and I would watch it every single week. I would not miss it in I Love Lucy for anything. And the rest of the people in my family, uh, my oldest sister, my brother-in-law, my parents, my next sister. So there were 5 other people in the household. Well, my older sister lived in the apartment downstairs, and we had the upstairs floor. And so all of them wanted to watch the Chicago Symphony with Leonard Bernstein conducting. Leonard Bernstein gave me the willies. I could not look at him for whatever the reason. And I wasn't interested in the Chicago Symphony. So I would stand my ground and say, I'm watching I Love Lucy. And we had one TV. So everybody would end up going downstairs to my sister's house to watch the Chicago Symphony. I would be alone in our home watching I Love Lucy. And so last night I said to Marvin, when I think back to those battles every week of, you know, it's a stupid program, why are you watching it, and all of that, I thought to myself, how different would it have been if any one of those adults had said to me, what makes I Love Lucy so important to you that you would insist on watching it every week? And as I thought about that question, I realized what it was about I Love Lucy that inspired me, that fed my soul, and that gave me the confirmation on an unconscious level that I was looking for, that validated what relationships ideally would be. And I don't know that as an 8 or 9 year old I could have verbalized it, but watching it now, it's a stupid program. I mean, they do hilariously outrageous things.
Hmm.
And yet, within the context of the relationships of the program, they're completely 100% accepting of each other. Nobody calls each other stupid when they do stupid things. And yet, some of the things they do are outrageously stupid.
They were very passionate too, right? Like they took a stance, but it was in a loving way. It wasn't.
Yes, it was always loving and accepting and loyal and dedicated and also protective of the self, but confrontive of the other. And so there's a lot of wisdom in the dynamics of relationship that was generally not mainstream. Being able to be outrageous for yourself and have the people around you accept you and love you. And so I thought to myself, what difference would it make? Nice, clean question. What difference would it have made for me as a child to have somebody even just ask me that question and have me go inside and say to myself, what's so important to me that I would fight all the adults in my environment to honor my soul and my values? And it made me think, we're coming up to the new year. What if we all ask ourselves those questions? What in your childhood were you never asked that would have opened your soul? Let's say your parents, when you were, you know, graduating from school and being ready to do something, what would have been different had they said to you, Sean, what's so important in drumming that that's what you really want to do?
It's a very interesting question around that time period too. I'm not sure I could have answered that question at that time.
You probably couldn't have,
Yeah.
but at least you would have thought about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody asked.
And so you let it go without an answer.
Hmm. So many ways I'd like to respond to that. I'm gonna tell you a short story. I don't even know if it's related, but it's popped in my head twice while you were talking about that. And it's around that time period. So I just graduated high school. There's a whole bunch of stuff that went on that was not a lot of fun that year. But I spent the year working 12-hour night shifts in a freezer warehouse, raising money. So I raised like $14,000 in 1990, working in a freezer warehouse. So it was like minus 30 Celsius. It was a sucky job, dangerous job too. So I raised all this money to go on a tour for a year with a group called Up With People. So it was a musical group that I did like 195 countries, or sorry, 195 cities, 14 countries in a year. It was one hell of a experience. Basically, it was like got to feel like a little young rock star. But when I auditioned for it, I auditioned as a drummer, but curiously, they wanted a singing audition, they wanted a dancing audition. I'm like, no, I'm going to play drums. Well, I get to Tucson, Arizona, where they do staging for this show, 6 weeks. And I'm not the drummer necessarily. Like I went there thinking I was. That's in my mind I was. And I had no idea that I still had to earn the job. So I get there and I'm like completely caught off guard that I've just spent all my money that I've raised for a year for a trip that I had a picture in my mind, and I haven't cemented the one part of the show or the gig that I wanted. Because I could have just been someone running around the stage dancing and stuff, which would have been fine, except that's not why I went there. I went there to play drums. And during my drum audition, there was another fellow in there. I think he was from Germany. And so I play the first song and I play it perfectly. I've sight read it, I had been prepared. But this guy after me plays perfectly. But what I noticed, there was something about his playing, because I knew I had improvised in certain parts and got away with it, and he mimicked my improvisation. So I was like, that's interesting. And I realized for a second I might lose this gig because if, it'll come down to if we both play the same, how do I stand out? So we do the second of three songs, and it turns out I'm right. I made a couple of alterations to the music, and he mimicked me perfectly. So I was like, okay, I know what's going on now. So when it's time to play the third song, I was like, oh, I got to go to the bathroom. He can go first. And at that point, he got exposed because he couldn't read the music whatsoever. He was
Hmm.
just faking it till he could make it. And had I not been, I would use the word desperate at that time. Like I was tuned in, I was present. I was like, I'm not losing this gig after all this effort. And I still remember that so clearly of like that was as close as something like I could have been on tour for a year doing a job I hated, paying to do it. That would have sucked. So I don't know why I'm telling you that, but it completely brought all of that back. It was very interesting. It was like a scary moment, like not a car accident moment, but a holy shit, that would have been the year would have been completely different and not what
So
I,
you got the gig?
yep. Yeah, it was, and for the most part, it was amazing. So it ended up being, it wore me out and did other things to me, but I got the gig.
So when you think back to that experience, what part of you knew what needed to be done? And how often do you tune into that part of yourself now?
I mean, that's such a great question. At the time, I would be willing to bet I was in my head. It was all mental stuff until shit got real. And it was like, it got really important that I need to pay attention. Because I mean, that was 1991. So I don't really remember much about it other than that was the outcome. But I can assure you, I probably found
You
enough.
do remember, you've told me what you remember,
Hmm,
that you were hot, you were talented, you were confident in your drumming, and you were confident that you would get the part unless somebody cheated. And you caught him cheating. And your self-protective aspect kicked in
yep.
intuitively. The 57, 34, 20.
Mhm. Yeah, and at the end of the day, it was almost in a kind way. Like I didn't expose him for cheating because I mean he wanted the gig too, I'm sure. But yeah, nobody had to be embarrassed. I just was a slightly more clever, slightly more tuned in, and yeah. Hmm.
That could be labeled God's hand.
Mm.
Something whispered to you, don't go first again.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I mean,
You
I don't.
didn't consciously think, oh, I need to do this, but the instinct was,
Mhm.
don't go first again.
Oh, for sure. It's only on reflection that that was clearly what happened. In the moment, I'm sure it was instinct.
And remembering that instinct
Mhm.
allows it to operate consciously.
Yeah, and there's a lot more of those kind of occurrences happening now, where if I'm fully present, I can do anything, um, or fix anything. So, hmm, I think I took us on a side tangent, though. Let's come back to where you you were talking about
Well,
here.
you didn't really. The point is that um, when you when anybody is functioning in the world, it is important to always tune into your spirit and to assess whether the people around you are also tuned in. And if they're not, do you want to be around them?
Mhm.
And in watching some of these old movies, we also watched the Oh God 1 and 2
Same.
with George Burns. And in the second one, Oh God 2, the character who sees God is a child, about a 10-year-old child. And it's a good example in a movie of how if you're not staying in the mental world, you may be considered crazy. Because when the child tells her parents that she sees God and he appears, you know, as a guy in a baseball cap, they take her to a psychiatrist.
Mhm.
And the psychiatrist wants to have her committed and put her on medication. And there are so many cases like that
Mhm.
where that level of sensitivity and spirituality and perception of other dimensions get somebody labeled as crazy or out of step or off base. Uh, and for the smart kids, they learn to keep quiet. And for the stupid ones, they end up medicated. So it was a good example of the way the culture has relegated us to be in the mental world and not give spirit credence. And horrifying. The parents did not institutionalize the child to their, you know, and I think it was that he appeared and they had an experience of God with the child,
Mhm.
if I'm remembering correctly. But it's something to think about in how we all function, knowing now that we function in four worlds and that the spiritual world is the most critical for all of us.
Mhm.
If you're not living who you are, you're not going to be happy.
100%. Yeah, this I don't know how you just put it, but like if you don't agree with what everyone else is saying, you're crazy. Like there's this mental thing. And I immediately kind of was thinking of NLP when it's used improperly, where it's like you're gonna do this, right? You're gonna go along with this. Like there's this whole head bobbing and people kind of get caught in a spell of just acceptance, right? And I can see it real time now. And I can see people trying it on me. And I don't even think they're actually consciously aware they're doing it.
They're
Uh,
not.
yeah. Yeah, I don't think they are. I think it's, or they learned it and put it in their back pocket and didn't
I
realize.
am going, I am going to do another 5-day experience, January 13th through 19th,
Mhm.
free. I decided to offer it free again. And that's a way for people to have an experience of the four worlds and the integrated world and to see how it functions in their life. And the experiences of people who did the first one were pretty powerful.
Yeah, I did it like I usually do on the peripheral, but I'm gonna take it more seriously this time. I'm ready for round two. I'm usually better on the second pass. So, um, hmm. Speaking of movies, I watched Awakenings this week. I think we were talking
Ah,
about it, and that was the movie was quite. It was as I remembered, but there were just some really sweet, very interesting moments in it that I think people could look at again and realize what we're doing with other people here. But then yesterday, Wendy and I watched the biography of Jim Henson, which I didn't even
hmm.
realize there was one, and I think it's fairly recent too. But I remember when he died. Like I only remember three major famous person deaths, like where I was. I do remember John Lennon being killed, but I was too young to remember where. But I remember being devastated because I was a huge Beatles fan. Um, I remember the Challenger being exploding because I was in class and we were watching it. Like because there was Krista McAuliffe, she was the teacher astronaut, and so
Right.
basically everybody watched that happen, right? But I also remember when Jim Henson died and like where I was, and it's remarkable to me how much of an impact the Muppets had on me. Like the timing of my growing up in Sesame Street and the Muppets and just the kind energy around him. But watching that biography was really interesting. He was kind of given free reign to do whatever he wanted somehow, yet everything he was doing seemed absurd at the time. And he still seemed to have the means to. And that was the part where I was kind of watching it like, I would love to do that because I feel I've got this sort of energy of having fun, but there's always responsibilities and the weight of things. And he just seemed to go through everything smoothly. And it was just remarkable watching his
See,
whole career.
if you trust spirit as the muse
Mhm.
and live by it, you don't worry about the world.
Yeah, that's my sense. It's been going that way. It's hard to imagine sometimes because I feel like I'm not an adult all the time. And people remind me of that, but they also seem to
Why would you want to be a grown-up?
exactly, they seem to enjoy it. Like after the side comment, there's almost like a they check themselves. So it's kind of gone from criticism to
Have you read The Little Prince? Antoine de Saint-Exupéry?
you've suggested it before. So there we go. There's round two. It's going in the list.
My favorite book of all time.
Oh, okay. You've told me that too, I think. All right. It's on my
My sister Sandra, who was highly influential in supporting my soul growing up, gave me The Little Prince when I was 11 years old. And I think she gave it to me in part because she knew the grown-ups around me didn't get my sensitivity or my depth. And it gave me the understanding that people get stuck in their own story. As the little prince goes from planet to planet, he gets to one where a man is drinking to forget his troubles, and his trouble is that he drinks. Or the lamplighter who's constantly lighting the lamp, and stuck in that rote. And it talks about love and what love is, and how when you love someone, you're responsible for that person, for that being. And what the little prince loved was a rose. And it was, if it's your rose, it's different than any other rose. So when you love someone, you love their uniqueness and you celebrate that. So there's a lot of wisdom in that book. And I've read it so many times. And it was the book that we read in French class in college. So not only did my sister give it to me, but then when I got to college, in all of my French classes, we read The Little Prince in French. And I mean, I almost had it memorized by then. So it was very easy, but
Mm.
very beautiful story.
Hmm. That made me reflect on my on Christmas Day again with my family. Like I found myself not like enjoying each person for why they were unique instead of perturbed by the interactions. And I could
Mm.
see them like their individual struggles just don't want to be heard in a table of 17 people, right? Because I was just really, really present. And yeah, it was nice. Turns out I like my whole family. So
And then when you were present with them, were they more present with you?
no, not necessarily.
Okay.
A few maybe. Um, no, but I noticed I've been witnessing a shift. So I think it's just takes time. So and I can be patient. And there were moments. Yeah, it was a good day. Mhm.
Because you felt like you connected, whether they did or not.
Yeah, I showed up the best way I could. And
Mhm.
with no agenda, no expectations, and but let go of all outcomes too. Like yeah, it was good. Yeah. Had a little nap too. I've never give myself a nap, but I needed a time out and took a nap. So yeah, it was good. Hmm. We have a couple of comments. I don't think there's any questions. Raven's here. Happy holidays, Sean and Dr. Eleanor. Uh, Stephanie Clifton. I hope I remember. Really would so love to be there. I'm not sure what that's about. And oh, I saw Mufasa this Sunday, and it was amazing. Which I'm assuming is a Lion King play. I'm assuming.
Mhm.
Yeah. Where do you get Marvin for Christmas when you've been together this long? Or do you?
We don't give each other gifts like that.
Yeah, Wendy and I've stopped.
He got me, he ordered me earrings for my birthday, and then he got them and he wasn't satisfied. So he gave them to me anyhow and ordered me something else, which has yet to come. Um, we buy things for each other all the time. So we we're always thinking of what the other person wants and getting them that.
Yeah, it's a nice place to be. We've been there for a long time. It's more like, what do you need? And I mean, even just if it's
No,
like,
we don't ever ask what the other person needs
right.
because we get everything we need for ourselves.
Mhm.
So it's more, what would you like? Or
Mhm.
what would enhance you in some way? I ordered, my daughter for my birthday sent me um, speakers that are by now by Solu, NOWBYSOLU.com. And they're two speakers. You turn them on, they go for 3 minutes each. I mean, as a set. And they're binaural beats that are like the Tibetan bells.
Oh, okay.
They're very beautiful and they're magical. Um, so she tuned in and got me that. And then I saw advertised the Beacon 40, which is advertised by David Osprey, who did Bulletproof. I trust his um, I trust his recommendations. So I ordered that to try. I'll let everybody know if it's worth it. Um, it's a light that you put near you and it radiates certain frequencies that enhance consciousness. So we
Wow.
have a lot of waves going around that enhance consciousness.
Mhm.
And um, I like to try everything before I recommend it.
Mhm.
So these speakers are quite good. Uh,
I never thought of light as being related to consciousness, but why not, right? Like there's that FLFE service. There's uh yeah, interesting light for consciousness. I have well, I think it's called a sad light, like a sudden a sun basically when you don't get enough sunlight, which is here is very difficult, November to April. So I've invested in like one at my desk, one by the bed. That's remarkable how much that improves. Either that or I've just convinced myself it's helping and therefore I feel better. I don't care. I don't care if it's working or not. It seems to be working. So that was my intention.
uh-huh.
But like light for consciousness. That's interesting. Um, okay, my brain's splitting in three places here, but part of me is thinking that meditation that I sent you with the geometry stuff, but it's the second one I wanted to talk about. The revision meditation, where you revise through meditation or through a hypnosis meditation kind of, you go back, you witness an event where you wish you had acted differently or a different outcome. And then you want to envision what the new outcome is. And I've been experimenting with that. I've probably done that 6 or 7 times. And there are over like little incidents in my life where, something went horribly wrong or it just, the outcome led to years of just not being quite right. And so I'll give you an example. My daughter, when she was about 6, 5 or 6, she was on the back deck. And it was a really hot day. We had a basset hound for a dog who had an ear infection. And long story short, there was a bit of food in the ground. She reached for it, got the dog. The dog freaked out, bit her in the face, and tore open like it was a big gash. Like I could see her bone. So, and I remember in the moment launching this dog 30 feet into the air and feeling terrible, but the dog needed to be out of the picture. Taking my daughter to the hospital. My wife's in Ontario at the time visiting her family. And I'm signing a form saying, your daughter needs to be put under for surgery, for plastic surgery, and basically says she might not come back. And I have to sign this, right? And I just remember it was a very terrifying day. Then sleeping on a cot at night and everything. Anyways, that was this day that created kind of like this dissonance between my daughter and I. I don't think she ever really blamed me for it, but I blame myself. And I think that energy carried a frequency. So I did that revision history. I want to call it a hypnosis. It was it's not, I didn't really feel like I was in a trance or anything, um, but the idea is that you would lightly look at that event and you remember it, and then you're going to walk by it again and picture how you'd like the outcome to have been differently. And honestly, in the moment, I don't really remember what I pictured other than it wasn't the dog biting her face, and so I am almost sure my relationship with my daughter has improved a bit since then. Like it was like a little upgrade. And I've done this with a few events with people, and I swear it's working. And I think it's partly that I show up kind of not carrying that frequency with me. I'm not carrying The
Guilt.
the guilt. Yeah, I think it's the guilt. I still wish a different outcome, but I'm not carrying it with me, and therefore she doesn't feel it either. And so there's
Is
like
she traumatized by that event?
not really. I mean, there was years there where she was afraid of dogs for a few years, but she worked through that pretty well. She's still got a little scar, and she used to always say it. She liked it. It was train tracks, but I think actually it bothered her. Right? Kids are going to be kids and tease and stuff. So, um, but yeah, like it's little things like that. Like it's a really powerful little meditation where it really is just cleaning up. It's kind of like pock and potting an event, visually, mentally, subconsciously.
Well, it's going back to the stories
Hmm.
you tell yourself or were told and replaying them as you wish they had been.
Hmm. Hmm. And
Because it's reclaiming your authority over yourself.
mhm. Yeah, and maybe it's just my perception of it, but she seems a little more chill lately. So is I don't know if it's
Maybe
like,
you're more chill in the energy you're projecting toward her.
mhm. Yeah, I think that's exactly what's happening. But it still seems like there's a knockoff effect. Like she's in a
Have you
glow.
spoken to her about it?
No, no,
Why
no, not
not?
it's no, it just hasn't.
Why don't you speak to her about it?
Yeah, I think I will. Partly because I'd like to introduce her to that meditation. I'm sure there's things where she might benefit from that kind of thing too. So I could just tell her what my experience was. It's a good way to bring it up too.
Well, I think, I always tell people to speak to their parents about events in their life
Mhm.
and to get the history of the parents. Uh, so the more you can be on both sides of a situation, the more conscious you can be. And how would your daughter clear what she felt about you if you were not open to listening to her side of it?
Yeah, I think we've actually discussed the event before, but I think that'll be something. If I get a chance this week, it'd be good to bring that back up. Curiously, whatever your my brain just was reminded of Christmas Day again. Kind of completely unrelated, but related. Um, I ended up kind of half in a conversation listening to my mother and her sister talking and talking about like they both asked me what was my first Christmas memory. And I was like 7, so it wasn't an early Christmas memory. But then they started asking each other, and they couldn't remember their first Christmas memory.
Mm.
It was like our family's history had been wiped. um, I thought it was a curious little dialogue that I was kind of just observing uh, separately. Um,
Oh.
and this is, my mom and her sister and the grandfather with the UFO, and it's just so many things that are so interesting about that scenario. But I also don't want to create drama with them and have them getting up in my head and where my imagination can go. But there are some interesting stories that I need to uncover. So, hmm. Hmm. I rarely pause, so it's almost uncomfortable to just pause and think about what to ask you next. But it's kind of nice too as well. Why did you choose the art that you did behind you? There's an owl, there's a lion, there's what looks like a phoenix, I think. Either that or a really angry turkey. And then I can't really tell what
It's a
this.
lady with a lion's head, and behind me is a lion with two people on a horse.
Okay.
One looks like a skeleton and the other is a woman. And then there's an owl and a small owl and a woman with a sort of horse's head. And then on the other wall, I have some others. I chose these are pieces of art I chose. Uh, hold on a second.
Sure.
Oh, there's a dog across the street that has a collar and he's loose and there's no person. Huh,
Want to take a moment and look into that?
poor thing. I think he got out of the yard. I think I've seen him before. Huh. It's a beautiful dog.
Mhm.
Um, I think he knows where he's going. So I got the artwork when I opened my Chicago office in 1974. And I was in training as a Jungian analyst. And the art is done by McLaughlin. And they were very archetypal.
Hmm.
They were otherworldly and they were showing the soul in a very interesting way.
Mhm.
And so they were in my office. They've always been in my office since I got them. And in California, they were in my office on the walls. And so they were on the other side of my room. And I just moved my hanging cabinets to the other side of the room and moved my artwork here.
Yeah, no, it was a good move. It's curiously the two in the middle have this big black street, like someone like the rest of it is all sketched and very intentional, and then it's almost like there's this big black band with both of them. I'm just wondering if
Um,
it's artistically intentional or is that supposed to be a wall?
all of them, well, one, two, three,
Even the owl
four.
has like a bit of a lighter gray.
All of them have a black in the background, except for the owl, and
Mhm.
his is like a gray band, but
Mhm.
all of them have some kind of band in them.
Yeah.
Oh, but the one on that wall doesn't. The one on that wall is a tiger and the tiger's face, and it looks like a horse's face as well.
Hmm. Interesting. I wonder if that's what's that? What would that mean to the artist? Anyways, just got me
I
thinking.
don't think it means anything.
No,
I think it was just the unconscious expressing itself.
or just had extra black ink. I got to get rid of all this blank ink. Here we go. Just put it here.
No, I think it's a in the middle picture, it almost looks like it's an ocean in the background, but it's black and white. So they're all black and white.
Mhm.
Wondering where I have my um huh. I'm thinking of a picture. I don't know where we put it. Um, I wonder if it's lost. Huh. I'll have to look.
I know what I want to ask you. And I kind of asked this with another friend yesterday, the day before. I think I used to have a different idea of what being psychic was. I somehow sensed it was a gift that other people had that I didn't, and that it was just so obvious to them, and I was missing everything. And what I've noticed in the last couple of days, and I've kind of been fact checking with friends who, like, I hear people say things that I used to think everybody heard, but I think only I heard it. Like they were saying something under their breath, but I fully knew exactly what they said, could hear it. In the situation, it might have been remarkable how well my ears work, but I somehow knew it. And I've been noticing that lately. And I used to think everybody saw that and heard that. And so I think I was just always like, we're all okay with this, like I guess we are. And now I realize that I'm hearing it, seeing it, and it's useful. It's even useful. Here I go on pickleball, but on the pickleball court, if I'm kicking someone's ass, sometimes the other opponent will be like, watch this, he's going to put it into the net. And they'll say it so quietly to their partner that it's almost like they're trying to cast a spell on me. And sure enough, before, if they said that, I put it into the net. It was almost like, oh, well, I'm being too extra, so I might as well go along with the game so this guy feels good about his game. Now it's completely different. So I hear that, I'm like, nope, I'm just gonna like be a little more careful this time just to make sure that is that what psychic is? Did I imagine like, or is that a form of it? I I hear but I swear their mouths are moving and it's not like I'm thinking what they're thinking. They're giving me the information, but they don't seem to be aware they're giving me the information. Is that psychic? Or
Not exactly.
okay, what's that then?
Um, Super sensitive.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay. So what's psychic then?
Psychic would be their mouths are not moving, and you know it.
Yeah, I think I know what people are thinking and doing most of the time too.
You probably do.
Yeah. I guess I'm just starting to trust that I'm sensing it. So I find I'm trying to validate when I'm right and when I'm guessing. So,
Well, that's part of knowing the limitations of your abilities and controlling them. Uh, Letting yourself be psychic and untrained is not very pleasant. And I speak from experience of knowing too much about people.
mhm.
I mean, I remember at one point being in an office building in California and looking down at the street and knowing everything about everybody walking by,
Hmm.
everything. And I going, I don't want to know this. This is too much. This is over the top.
Hmm.
I don't want to know everything about everybody. And it took me about 5 years to control it.
Well,
Hard work.
is that the same then as channeling? Like, for example, when Ra was channeling the voice, or when you channel and get information, that's
No, it's
still
different. It
it's different.
feels different.
Hmm.
It may not be different for everyone. It feels different for me.
Hmm.
When I'm channeling, it's not personal. And when I'm reading somebody psychically, it is personal.
Hmm. Hmm. So when you're channeling, are you channeling for the other person then? You're not channeling something for yourself. That's not how that works.
Not channeling for people. I channel what my mission is.
Hmm.
And it's at times it's overwhelming and it's can be disruptive and it is a huge responsibility. I would not wish it on most people.
Hmm.
And, I tried really hard, to be quite honest, to get away from design many times. Initially, I met Ra in 96. In 98, I wanted nothing more to do with him, and I completely left the field. And Tom Pfeiffer wouldn't let me leave. He started sending me, I'd love to find where he is now, because I'd love to contact him and share some of what's going on. But he would not let me get away from it. And then when we shared with Ra that Tom had bootlegged all his lectures, Ra was thrilled
Oh yeah.
because, oh, yeah, he'd had a falling out with Zeno and Chaitanya. And so he had none of his materials.
Oh,
And
we took them with them, basically. Oh yeah.
so we gave him all of the recordings
Hmm.
that he didn't have.
Hmm.
And he was thrilled. Um, and then when Rob began, after we signed the contract, within a month, he began doing things that were dishonest. And Marvin and I did confront him on it numerous times, which of course he didn't like, but he respected.
Yeah, that's good.
And he never paid his bills. And because we wouldn't let him double dip, he began Jovian Archive,
Oh, okay.
reaction to that. So he needed something that could cut us out of the picture, because he didn't want to limit himself to anything. And he really didn't want to share the spotlight with anyone or the information with anyone. And so ultimately, he did want me, he wanted me to be the keynote speaker when the first Jovian class in Ibiza. And I was going to do it, and then I pulled out because my daughter almost died. And I just couldn't leave. I mean, it was too traumatic. I just couldn't leave her. And he didn't really forgive me for that.
It's interesting that I was asking about channeling and then you talked about wanting to leave design, but then my mind was I kind of feel like as I've dug into my design, my energy map, my where things are accentuated, it really has been like the tools to amplify certain capabilities, like made me aware of it, or like just by seeing it on paper, be like, oh, maybe I could do that. It gave me the art of the possible. Um, is that a healthy way to look at it? It seems to have benefited me overall, although you've also given me warnings.
There is no rule.
Yeah.
It's individual. We're each an individual, and everybody is unique. I was channeling when I was a kid.
Hmm.
I was writing poetry and writing journals, and I remember writing my papers for classes. And there is no way that I could think that stuff. When I would sit down to write, it was just there. And generally, my teachers would ask me for my papers. Um, and I remember saying, but over and over and over again, I can't think to save my life, which is true. You know, if you ask me to outline something, I'll have a hard time. But ask me to tune in spiritually and then sit down and write it, I have no problem. So everybody is unique. And I knew who I was before I had design. And that's why I kept saying to Ra, I'm not a manifester. I am not, I'm not an angry type. I don't, none of what he said about a manifester fit me. But talk about me being a manifesting generator. Mhm.
Yeah, I've seen you. You got plenty of MG stuff going on. Give anyone a run for their money. Hmm. Hmm. I'm looking at a parking ticket on my desk here, and I've gotten two parking tickets in the last week, both of which I actually paid for parking. The first one is I somehow got dinged in the 1 minute that like the meter expired and got renewed. So I don't know how the individual did that, but I have to deal with that. And the city's not gotten back to me on that. Then I got another parking ticket because I put in the wrong parking space number. I missed it by one. So I have to deal with that. I'm only telling you this because when I got those parking tickets, it was two times, right? Like the day was going really well. And then like stupid city just got in my grill again. And I swear I'm being tested by these parking tickets lately. So I'm quite pleased with how I responded. Part of me wants to fight them because neither of them, one of them, I put the wrong number in, but it's clear that I missed the number by one and I paid. So I feel like that I should be given a mulligan on that one. The other one they made a mistake on. Part of me also just wants to pay it because energy and I don't really want to have an argument with someone. And so lately I'm almost weighing what's the easier
Does
path.
it have a consequence on your insurance or your license?
No, it's a parking ticket. It's just with the city. So it's yeah, it wouldn't go on my record. And either way, I would either pay it or do I want to put some energy into fighting it? And that energy could be 3 minutes, but it might lead to a phone call. It might lead to it's just one of those things where I'm like find myself wrestling with what I want to take action on. And it,
Well, it depends on your finances. It depends on how much money is involved.
mm,
It depends on whether there's any mark on your record.
yeah, no. There's-
And if it's not worth it, you just let it go.
Mhm.
It's just money.
Yeah. Historically, I've not been very careful with money though. There was a time there where it came easily. And so I've developed bad habits around money, I realize. 5 years in Bermuda didn't help because there was no taxes and every bill was so outrageous. You just, in Bermuda, like you just, everything you paid for, it was so ridiculous over the top. It didn't matter. You were paid well there. But I just came back with these really bad habits. Just, just haven't really recovered from that. So like there's a maturity thing with me with it. So, anyways, that parking ticket's staring at me right now, taunting me.
And what do you want to do with it?
Honestly, I just want to shred it and not even pay for it, but then it'll just come back. So I need to deal with it. So
So, what do you want to do with it?
when we're done here, I'm gonna send an email and dispute the tickets. Well, that was easy. But it's something like that almost feels like a mountain sometimes for some reason.
Well, don't let it get there.
Yeah.
It's we have to deal with a lot of mental world stuff.
Mhm.
Credit card bills, um, parking meters, car insurance, um, groceries, healthcare, all kinds of in the world, making waking life kinds of things. I think that the key is to not use energy on it, to do it in the vein in which it belongs. And I spent a lot of yesterday um, dealing with credit card bills and financial stuff and web stuff and all of the administrative tasks that need to be dealt with to survive in the world. But I don't use any energy to do it. Now, I don't know how to tell you how to do that, but one of my mantras is came from Harv Eker. Um, and it's how you do anything is how you do everything. And I use that as a very powerful mantra. So when I'm doing things like a credit card, and we have credit cards that are maybe 10 pages long, uh, and I have to categorize everything and add them up, and it's tedious. I love doing it.
I know you say that. Still, still can't get there, but yeah.
Well, I treat it like a meditation.
Mm.
Um, I treat it like a game. Um, and I never say I don't want to do it. Um, I enjoy all of those tasks, I must say. I like paying my bills. I like entering things in my QuickBooks. I like ordering groceries. I did it yesterday. I was going to make my grandson chocolate chip cookies, and I realized I didn't have the right ingredients. So I went online and I ordered them yesterday, and I'll bake them when we finish today. And it's no effort. When you begin to build a task as a big mountain to climb, it takes a lot of energy. But when you don't build the mountain and you're on level ground and you see it as a break from other tasks, it's just one of the things you do.
Mhm.
And you enjoy it when you do it.
I used to be like that. I think there was probably 46 years where I just kind of did my thing. I think I wasn't spiritually connected, wasn't grounded. I was solving everyone. I think I just,
Maybe you're underestimating yourself.
yeah. But there's something there but you're right. I have a tendency to leave things until there's enough pressure that I have to do something about it. I'm still finding myself, I don't know if I'm almost excited by the notion of it being like, I've left it long enough that now it's an interesting task, you know, like a bit of a daredevil with everything. It's not healthy for me. I just recognize I'm doing it. So yeah, that doesn't serve me. And thinking about it energetically, it ends up being exhausting because it catches up with me and then it's overwhelming.
Well, the undercurrent of tasks that are your to-do list that you haven't made visible can drain your energy.
Mhm.
And it's much easier. I find myself with many people, especially people who have the 5432 in their chart, saying you need to write down your goals. Now, I do write a to-do list every single day. Just on a post-it. I have this square size post-it. And at night, if I have a list of things I have to take care of, I'll write a to-do list. And then I check off my to-do list. Once you write it down, you don't have to carry it internally. So if it's a mental world task, it becomes a mental world task.
Yeah. Like writing things down, journaling has been something I'm often resistant to, but every time I do it, I'm like, why don't I do that more? I find myself wanting to use modern tools. So I'll put it, as a reminder on my phone or a task in Trello, or I'll send myself an email. And so I end up with these different systems all to do the same task. And I'd probably do better just writing it on a piece of paper because it's present and it's
Well, also, when you write it, it's kinesthetic.
mhm,
And when you type it or put it into a computer, it's not kinesthetic in the same way.
mhm. There's so much truth to that. And my brain keeps rationalizing, but I've got a backup of it. If I lose my phone, the task will still be on my iPad because they're synced, right? My brain is like, it's safer. But I do fuck all with it then. It's in the digital bullshit. So yeah. Mm. All right. Well, my daughter got me a new journal for Christmas, so not like my other one was full, but it might be a good excuse to fresh journal, fresh start. Hmm. That's my other little project.
When you journal,
Mhm.
um, write the date, the time, and the place.
Okay.
So if you ever want to look back and look at the astrology of it or
Hmm.
the design of it as a transit, you have all the data.
Interesting. Yeah, I never thought about writing the location down. Of course, my nerdy techno brain is going, well, then I should put it back in my phone because it would have captured the GPS coordinates of the location. Like my brain is already trying to shortcut it. No, I will write it down in a book. That's very, very good. I swear my
You
body
know,
needs techno.
Sean, you can always write it down in your book and then take a picture of it.
Hmm.
So you have it on the computers.
Yep. No, I tell people that all the time. I don't necessarily follow my own advice. So,
Well, having lost a month of data when my computer crashed,
mhm.
backup failed, um, having paper trail becomes important also.
Hmm.
Think about photographs. All the digital photographs are going to be lost. I have things, transcripts that were done in the early 90s that cannot be retrieved because the operating system changed. Digital stuff is not going to last very long, whereas paper does. That's why I'm converting everything to books.
Hmm. Are you talking solar flares and when you say digital's not going to last or?
No, the operating systems change.
Oh, I see. Well, yeah.
Microsoft Word that was done in the early 90s, you can't open now.
Well, you can. I can help you with that.
I know it can be done,
Yeah.
but
It's a nuisance. Yeah.
it is not easy and it is not like a handwritten piece of paper or something that you did online and printed out. You have a hard copy. So the digital, look at all the digital photos. What's going to happen to them? You know, if all of your photos of your kids are digital, how are they preserved?
Hmm. You said there, set my brain on a tangent and it's gone. Oh, well.
Do you know where it went?
Nope. Nope.
Okay.
I was
It's
reflecting.
off and running, Sean.
Yeah. I was describing this to a friend yesterday. Something's changed. So it used to be like you could say something in the middle of the sentence, there'd be a word that I didn't fully grasp. And or it'd be like do I really understand the meaning of that word? And my brain would disappear and I'd be in another dimension trying to reverse engineer that word and everything I knew about that word. And then I would return, and you would only be 3 or 4 words down the line in your sentence. But to me, it felt like 20 minutes. Like it was like a whoosh, I was gone. Time stopped. I realize that's been happening to me. Oh, what happened there? Zoom just flipped the cameras. It's the oh, I see it. Raised my hand somehow. That was interesting. So that used to happen all the time. And it ended up making me a terrible listener because I lost part of what the person was saying. And by the time I returned, I was really lost what they were saying. I lost the context, the plot.
Uh-huh.
And now I feel bad. So now I'm just nodding my head along, like, And then it's agonizing because sometimes it might be 20 minutes of like they're talking to me and I have no idea what they're talking about because I'm missing context. What's changed for me is it's not that I'm necessarily a better listener now. It's when my brain does that, I come back and I'm like, sorry, could you repeat that? Like, and I'm not afraid to ask someone to repeat it. I used to be
Mhm.
terrible at that because there was like shame or guilt or whatever attached to it. Um, it's remarkable to me that at this point in my life, figuring that out, you know? And then part of me also recalls you talking about audio sequencing or auditory sequencing. I think it's related to that. It's fascinating to me. And I wonder how many people struggle with that. Like, and is it what's going on with a whole lot of people and everyone's afraid to say, sorry, I've lost this conversation. I feel guilty. I really wish I could just ask you to repeat yourself. And most people are afraid to, or
Mhm.
they're caught up in all their other shit that they don't want to.
Right.
So yeah.
Do
Yeah.
we have any questions?
Nope. Oh, sorry. Mundane Mystic, have you heard about the Telepathy Tapes podcast? Fascinating accounts with nonverbal autistic people. So I think that was
And
you're talking about psychic stuff. The telepathy tapes. That's interesting. And Raven says, I finally but slowly integrated all 4 worlds into my life. I feel a little balanced now.
good,
Good.
good.
Will there be a webinar next week? I guess so, right? Just
No,
not classing. Oh, neither. Okay.
no classes next week because of the 1st of January.
Oh, okay.
And so people are preparing for the new year, and then there is the new year. So no classes. People are gonna still be on holiday,
Okay. And not the webinar then either, right?
not the webinar.
Okay. Cool.
We'll resume the first week in this, I guess, the second week of January.
Perfect. All right. Yeah, no questions. And I need to go meditate. I need to go relax. Played some pickleball.
Okay, we
Had a
can stop.
conversation. It was good. Yeah. All right. Why don't we wrap that up there? Hang tight for a minute.
Sure.
And wishing everybody uh, a happy new year.
Yes, indeed. And may it be a peaceful one
Mhm.
with abundance and optimism and faith.
Yeah. Nicely put. Thank you.